listening to the Touch 'em Up podcast. I'm your host, Double M, and on today's episode, we have UFC 316 Dvalishvili versus O'Malley 2 preview, predictions, and breakdown. In the main event, you have a rematch that arguably shouldn't be happening for the Bantamweight Championship between the former champion in Sugar Sean O'Malley trying to reclaim his throne against the man who beat O'Malley in a dominant fashion and also racked up another successful title defense against Umar Nurmagomedov in The Machine, Merab Dvalishvili. Then in the co-main event of the evening, you have a battle for the Women's Bantamweight Championship with everybody's favorite WMMA underdog in Juliana, the Venezuelan Vixen Pena, taking on the standout Olympian. The thing that everybody believed Ronda Rousey was going to be in the great grappler and phenomenal submission artist in only her third fight in the UFC, getting a crack at the gold in Kayla Harrison. So without any further ado, let's get this started and step into the ring. Alright guys, we are back this week for UFC 316. I should have Stone Cold on the podcast just to give you guys a good old intro. Maybe I'll have that added in, who knows, we'll see. But yeah, this is a good card. Way better than that complete and utter just trash we had last week. I would swear right now, but I got to get through a few minutes of the podcast before I go off. One of my worst prediction cards ever. Like, ever. I just forget that last week ever happened. Because whatever happened, it's like I said the complete opposite for almost every single fight. Except the guy who was a pretty big favorite and he ended up going to a decision, which I think was like huge odds to go to decision, but that doesn't matter. We're just going to talk about the technical side of the fights today. Forget the odds. Forget the underdog this, value this, value this. Who do I think is going to win? That's what this podcast was always about. Maybe I kind of strayed off and started playing too much into the favorites, into the odds, into the, oh, well, this is good value. Fuck the value. I'm going to tell you who's going to win these fights. I'm going to tell you how they're going to win these fights, or how they're going to win their fights, and it's going to look really good this week. So let's kick it off. Forgetting last week, we're starting with a bang, and I'm going to try to sweep the card. So let's see how it goes. First up, in the lightweight division, you have a battle between Quillan Salkilld, coming off the Contender Series, coming off of a round one knockout in his UFC debut. And he's taking on Yanal Ashmouz. Salkilld came in, knocked out Anshul Jubli in one round. One of the biggest memes in MMA is Anshul Jubli. One shot, hit the deck, and that's it. Yanal Ashmouz lost to Chris Duncan, went to a decision, but ended up losing. I don't think that looks too bad, man. Duncan beat one of my favorite guys in Jordan Vucenic. He also came in and choked out Balaji Oki, and Oki looked pretty good this last weekend against the big underdog on short notice in Michael as well. In this fight, man, I think it comes down to, can Ashmouz crack Salkilld on the chin? Because Salkilld is the much more technical striker. He's much better at range. He's much better at distance. And he's going to use those long, rangy weapons in order to just kind of pick apart Ashmouz from the outside. Jab into the calf kick. 1-2 into the switch kick. Circle, circle. Jab, left hook, right hand. Switch stance, right hook into a knee to the body. Cut the angle. Switch back. Jab, left hook. Rear kick to the body. Jab, low kick. I think he's just going to kind of be picking him apart for the majority of this fight. I think Ashmouz is going to have to either just get on the inside and push Salkilld up against the fence and take him down. And if he can't take him down, I think he's going to just have to knock him out with one shot. Do I think Salkilld is the best fighter defensively? No, I think the guy gets hit. I think if you have huge punching power, which I think Ashmouz was believed to have, but I don't technically believe he has that, especially against a guy who's as technically proficient as a Salkilld. I just think this is a very tough fight for Ashmouz. I think Ashmouz, like I said, he has a lot of power. He hits hard. He can also grapple. I don't think he's going to out-grapple and hold down Salkilld. I think if anybody starts to push the pace and get those takedowns late, it probably is Quillan Salkilld. I think Salkilld is going to have the better cardio when we get into the second and the third round. And I think Ashmouz has the opportunity to win for about 6.5 minutes. I really do believe that. And it's probably going to be KO. I kind of feel like Ashmouz is knockout or bust in this fight. And I think Salkilld can win a decision. I think Salkilld can outstrike him from the outside. He's very crisp, very clean, very technical. But again, like I said, the defense is a big issue. He can get hit. When he's pushed up against the fence, he will guard up, but he still leaves openings. And Ashmouz does have the power to where he might just lose the entire fight, push Salkilld against the fence, land a big overhand right or land a big left hook, and put him down. I think Salkilld can wrestle here. I think the smart thing would be to outstrike him, move on the outside, pick him apart, work the body, the left hook to the body, the switch kick to the body, knees to the body as Ashmouz steps in, and then getting your hips back, cutting that angle, getting the whizzer, and circling off, and then getting right back on your jab, peppering him, and then pushing him back against the fence, making sure to cut him off laterally so he can't necessarily get the angles that he needs to get. You got to just kind of poke and prod and pepper him, get him tired, and then once you sense that he's tired, that's when you start to attack the wrestling. That's when you use that threat of the wrestling when he's probably already tired to feint and come up the middle with knees and uppercuts. I think strikes up the center channel are going to be a big thing for Salkilld here. I also think that jab and the 1-2 is going to be a big thing for him. He's got a long reach. He's going to use it, and he's going to know how to use it. And I think Ashmouz is really either knockout or bust, or he has to get on the inside, rough him up, and get takedowns at the end of rounds to seal it. And I just don't think he's going to be able to do enough damage on the ground if he does secure some of those takedowns. So I'm going to take Quillan Salkilld. I think he wins. I think he does deserve to be a big favorite. I necessarily, well, you know, for like I said, we weren't talking about the odds. So forget about the favorite, forget about the underdog, whatever. I think when it comes to this fight, Quillan Salkilld is going to win this fight by a third round TKO. I think he's going to overwork, overwhelm, outstrike, take him down, beat him up. I think he's going to look better in every aspect. He'll get hit with some big shots, but he'll survive, and he'll just break Ashmouz later in the fight. Give me Quillan Salkilld, third round TKO over Yanal Ashmouz, and I think this kid's for real. Next up, we move to the lightweight division in a battle between the former, well, I guess still current, APFC lightweight champion, moving over to the UFC, making his UFC debut with a record of 8-0, encompassing 6 finishes, in Mark the Shark Choinski, taking on Marquel Mederos, the Factory X, and I believe he now trains at the MMA lab alongside the likes of Mario Bautista, under the tutelage of Randy Steinke and a few other head coaches at the MMA lab. Yeah, guys, I love this fight. I think Choinski and Mederos is going to be one of the best fights on the card. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think Choinski is a horrible matchup for Marquel Mederos. And let me explain why. Yes, he is a huge underdog, but take that out of here. Every time you see Marquel Mederos step into the octagon, he fights close with just about anybody. The only time he didn't fight to a close competitive decision, where yes, he still won, but it was kind of, maybe they give it to the other guy, was on the Contender Series when he knocked out Isakov with that brutal knee up the middle. Now, Choinski is stepping in on short notice. He's coming in with no training camp, but he was getting ready to compete at APFC and move up to welterweight to try to become a double champ. So he was in shape. He was getting ready. He was about to have a fight in APFC in about a month or two. So I think people are kind of glazing over the fact that Choinski is in fight shape. He's ready to go. He was getting ready. This is different, though. APFC to the UFC, this is a different kind of fight. This is a different style of fight. And I think he's going to be ready. I think Mederos is going to win this fight by just outstriking Choinski from the outside. He's a lot longer. He uses his length. He uses his reach a lot better. Typical Mederos fight. Using the long jab, 1-2, switching stances to cut off the opponent, kind of angle him into your power when you change the stances, straight hand down the middle, jab, jab, circle off, left hook, right low kick, move around, switch, straight left, right hook, jab your way out, step back, bop, come up the middle, land knees up the middle against a guy who is a heavy wrestler. Choinski is a decorated wrestler with really solid takedowns, good entries, good top control, and good ability to really shine in scrambles on the ground. That's where I think he honestly is going to win this fight. So, you know, newsflash, I'm taking Choinski to upset Mederos in his debut. Do I think Choinski is going to be a UFC champion? No, I don't think so. But do I think he can win this fight against Mederos, who notoriously fights close with everybody? Yes, people are saying, oh, this is a levels fight. This is a levels fight. This is a levels fight. We haven't really seen Mederos fight the upper echelon of the division. Now, am I saying Choinski can compete with the upper echelon of the division? We don't know. But I think Mederos fights close with everybody. How are you just going to write off the guy who is a decorated All-American wrestler? I'm pretty sure Choinski is an All-American wrestler, state champion, great jiu-jitsu, and underrated striking. You know, I think Mederos is the better striker just based off the tape that I've seen. But I think Choinski is decent, man. He uses a good jab. He uses a good 1-2. He really turns that hip over and drives that cross in. And he's going to be on the pressure. He's going to be on the pace. I think Mederos is going to be feinting, faking, using those stance changes, drawing out the attacks to try to counter Choinski, throw leg kicks. But you don't want to throw too many leg kicks against a wrestler like Choinski. And I think if it's close on the feet, I think Choinski will end up winning and securing these rounds with wrestling. I think he's going to just make it close enough on the feet, and then when Mederos overcommits on a punch or throws a lazy kick, he's going to get that kick caught. He's going to get the level change. He's going to get, in on the hips of Mederos, and Choinski's going to get those takedowns. And I think he controls Mederos on the top for a majority of this fight. Now, do I think he's going to get tired? Yeah, I think Choinski probably gets tired, but I also think Mederos will get tired in the third round. But we've seen him push the pace against a guy like Austin Hubbard, but Hubbard was able to push Mederos up against the fence, take his back, was on his back for a majority of the time, holding him in the clinch against the fence, and did a lot of work, and then Mederos came back at the end of rounds to steal it. At the end of the day, I think this fight is going to be really close, because I just think that's the type of fighter that Marquel Mederos is. He fights close with everybody. He does have KO power on the regional scene. He got a lot of knockouts. Choinski's beating a ton of these guys on the regional scene. I would say the most high-level fighter that Choinski has beaten was Justin Juice Lovrich, training out of MTC over in Schaumburg, Illinois. But the guy's a really solid wrestler. He's a really solid grappler. He's improving his striking. And Choinski did give up some takedowns, but he showed very good composure in that fight. He showed the ability to control Lovrich on the ground, which we haven't really seen much of. We haven't seen Lovrich in his regional scene tape really get controlled on the top, and Choinski was able to do that. But that was a very tough fight. And then I believe, if I remember correctly, Lovrich did come back and win that third round, or at least make it close enough to where he was kind of outstriking and pushing Choinski back. But I think that's the best performance from Choinski. A lot of these other guys he's just running through. Then you go to his last fight against Johnny Sims, I believe. Johnny Sims or Johnny Simone, correct me on the name. And, he got clipped a couple times on the feet. He did get taken down, but he reversed position, worked his way back up to the feet. Very good scrambles, very good hips, very good awareness of where his hips and weight need to be in the grappling exchanges. And I think Choinski can make it close on the feet. I do not think he's a novice striker. Like I said, I think Mederos is the better overall striker, just with the fakes, the feints, the movement, and things like that. But Choinski has power, and he does commit on that right hand. His 1-2 looks good. Solid left hooks, and he's very good in the clinch. Watch out for Mederos when he's up against the fence to get hit with big knees to the body and knees up top to the head and elbows. He's very good with throwing knees and elbows and just chaining those tie clinch strikes together and then using that to get you to guard up high level change and get the takedowns. I think Choinski makes it close enough on the feet and uses his scrambling and wrestling ability to potentially find a late submission here, but I'm going to say he wins this fight 29-28 unanimous decision. I think he wins at least 2 out of the 3 rounds. I think this guy can grapple, can out-wrestle Mederos and make it close enough on the feet to where his strikes might have a little bit more power than Mederos on the feet, which could sway the judges along with the wrestling success I believe he's going to have. So give me Mark Choinski. Give me Mark the Shark Choinski. 29-28 unanimous decision over Marquel Mederos here. I think he's going to get it done, and it's not the most popular pick, but I definitely think he has the tools to win this fight. All right, up next, we've got a battle in the welterweight division. This is a fight that was scheduled on short notice. You've got Andreas Gustafsson taking on Khaos Williams. A banger fight. Somebody is getting finished, I think, in this spot. Gustafsson was one of my big picks last week against Trevin Giles. I had a bet on him. It didn't work out, and that's just the name of the game. Giles pulled out. I think we knew Gustafsson was going to get the job done there, but it is what it is. He's stepping in again, and now he's taking on Khaos Williams, which, in my opinion, it's a more dangerous fight for Gustafsson compared to a Trevin Giles. But I also think at the same time, even though it's more dangerous, I think it's more winnable or an easier fight for him, even though it's more dangerous. And let me explain. So Gustafsson can be hit. And if you get hit by a guy like Khaos Williams, you're in a lot of trouble. This guy has one-punch knockout power. But he doesn't really have the quote-unquote technical skills to put things in front of the knockout power. He can land one big right hand and knock out Gustafsson in this fight. He can land a big uppercut and knock out Gustafsson in this fight. But he doesn't have the technical skills and the overall technical striking to really hide those power punches. The punches come out, wind up, big left hook, big right hook, big uppercuts. Even the straights down the middle, like the one he landed against Abdulrazak Al Hassan, it was a good straight, but if you watch it in terms of like technically how sharp it wasn't necessarily the sharpest punch. He just lined it up right down the middle, boom, but his chin was in the air, he leaves himself open. I think Gustafsson at the same time does leave himself open for a lot of shots. He walks forward, he's a marauder, he gets in your face, pushes you back, works dirty boxing inside the clinch, knees, elbows, uppercuts, just kind of breaks you down and wears you out. If he's smart in this fight, I'll tell you exactly what he needs to do, and that is strike his way into the clinch and wrestle. Wrestle, wrestle, wrestle. Take down Khaos Williams. Williams does not really have much of anything when it comes to the ground game, and too many people want to stand and strike with the guy, which gives him more of an opportunity to win this fight. Now, I'm not saying he's not a good grappler because he got submitted by Gabriel Bonfim. A lot of guys in the division that he's in the welterweight division, would get submitted by a Gabriel Bonfim. He's got really solid jiu-jitsu, and his striking has come a long way. He can knock you out on the feet as well. But we knew if that fight went to the ground that Williams was going to cause a lot of issues. With this one, I think Gustafsson is going to play the game of striking with Khaos Williams, which does leave him the opportunity to get a KO. But I also think he's going to start to close off the gap. He's going to start to walk through Khaos Williams' strikes. And I think he will eventually start to push Williams up against the fence. And he's going to start to land those elbows. He's going to start to land those uppercuts. He's going to start to land knees to the body. And he might even get a couple takedowns along the way. Push him against the fence, get some takedowns, and wear him out on the ground. It would not shock me one bit if Gustafsson finished this fight on the ground. Now, do I think it's going to be a submission? No, probably not, because the guy just wants to punish you, rip you apart, cut you up, make you bleed, and just pretty much beat the shit out of you. That's what this guy does. He doesn't want to play around. He wants to walk forward. He wants to hurt you, and he wants to cause damage. Williams can definitely catch him and knock him out here. I understand why he's the underdog just based off quote-unquote UFC experience, which is kind of similar to what we saw in the last fight we broke down with Mederos and Choinski, with the UFC experience probably being an advantage. But in this fight, I don't necessarily think the UFC experience matters too much, because both of these guys are going to come forward and look to do the same thing that they always do, which is walk forward, get in each other's faces, get in the opponent's face, walk them down and beat them up. I feel like the fighter who has a more surgical approach, more weapons in this fight, and more ways to win if it doesn't go well in a certain area is Andreas Gustafsson. So with that being said, I'm going to take Gustafsson. I think he wins this fight. I think he has a tough first round. He might get KO'd in the first round. It's possible, but I think he kind of weathers that storm, sees a lot of the strikes coming from Khaos Williams, starts to land elbows over the top, starts to land knees, starts to land elbows in the clinch, starts to back up Khaos Williams, starts to slow him down. I think he starts to get some takedowns, and I think he wins this fight via ground and pound finish in round 2. Give me Andreas Gustafsson to win. Round 2 ground and pound finish. I think he's going to hurt him on the feet, get those takedowns, get on top, and elbow his face into oblivion. So give me Andreas Gustafsson, second round TKO. I think he gets the job done here, and I think this is going to be an amazing fight for as long as it lasts. All right, next fight up is in the heavyweight division. You have a battle between Serghei, the polar bear Spivac, taking on Waldo Cortes Acosta. I'm going to keep this breakdown short and sweet. It doesn't have to be too long because it basically is going to be exactly what you think. If the fight stays on the feet, Cortes Acosta is going to knock out Serghei Spivac. If the fight goes to the ground, Spivac is going to get on top, beat up Cortes Acosta, and get a submission. Really, I think this fight is a pick'em. And the odds, even though it's not technically about odds anymore, even though I've said that a couple times now. Just a force of habit I'm trying to break. When I look at this fight on paper, I could easily see Cortes Acosta knocking out Serghei Spivac in one round. And I can also see Spivac taking down Cortes Acosta, timing a punch, getting on top, getting to the mount, or getting to the crucifix, and just beating the absolute shit out of Waldo Cortes Acosta and either getting a TKO on the ground or a submission. Cortes Acosta has no chance on the floor. Serghei Spivac has no chance on the feet, in my opinion. But that's pretty self-explanatory if you know the way both of these guys fight. I don't really know who I want to pick because, like the reasons I just explained, I think it could go either way. It's a coin flip. And if I really think about it, give me a second, because I'm trying to... I don't really know who I think is going to win this fight. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to go with my original gut instinct, which is that Waldo Cortes Acosta knocks out Serghei Spivac. I just don't think Spivac is really at the level anymore. I don't think Cortes Acosta is like a future champion or anything, but I think he's going to be on the feet long enough to hurt Spivac. And Spivac is a guy who gets hurt and isn't able to recover. He's able to win when he can push forward, get the takedowns, get on top, and control. But almost every time we've seen this guy get hurt and get rocked, he hasn't found a way to come back. And I think that's what we get here. I think Cortes Acosta is going to just clip Serghei Spivac with a shot on the feet in the first round, get on top, and beat him up. Or hurt him, rock him, and finish him off with a TKO. So my pick is going to be Waldo Cortes Acosta, round 1 TKO. But again, not confident in it, and I could easily see Spivac timing a punch, shooting in, taking him down, beating him up, and either ground and pounding or submitting him. I do not think this fight gets to the third round. I think it ends in the first or the second. But I'm going to take Waldo Cortes Acosta just because I think he can land something before Spivac takes him down and beats him up. So give me Serghei Spivac, give me Waldo Cortes Acosta. Maybe that's a sign I shouldn't go with Waldo. But give me Waldo Cortes Acosta, round 1 KO over Serghei Spivac. Not much to say about it. I think he just clips him before Spivac takes him down and beats him up. All right, next fight up is in the light heavyweight division. You got a battle between Brendson Ribeiro taking on Azamat Murzakanov. I'm going to be clear with you, and it's going to be a quick breakdown, kind of like the last one. I think Ribeiro's going to get knocked out here. You know, I know Ribeiro looked good against Kyle Machado. I know he came in and won again as a big underdog against Dayar Nurgajai, and I thought Nurgajai was a pretty solid UFC prospect, and he kind of shut that down. And realistically here, I think we haven't seen much of Murzakanov. He's been off. He's been out. Last time we saw him in the octagon, he knocked out Alonzo Menefield. Menefield also had gotten knocked out in the first round against Carlos Olberg. But I think what this comes down to is the technical skills of Murzakanov at range and at distance compared to the 1-2 of Brendson Ribeiro at distance, because that's really what I think he has, and I think that's all he has, is a good jab and a good 1-2. Now, a jab and a 1-2 can win you a fight, even at the highest level, if you have really solid timing and you're very good at picking your spots. So I would not be surprised if Ribeiro clipped Murzakanov with a big 1-2 or a hook into a cross and just extended and caught him on the chin. But I just don't think that's going to happen. I think Murzakanov is too crisp. He's too dangerous. He cuts angles very well. He finds his openings. He has that Russian style of boxing, kind of like a Dmitry Bivol. Now, do I think he's, the same fighter as a Bivol? No. But the way he fights, he can kind of stay on the outside, use that length, and use that lead hand to kind of draw your guard out and draw your guard down and come right over the top with that check hook. And then moving, left, boom, straight hand, check hook. Moving, keeping that hand high, jab, moving around, cross hook. And he can win fights even when he's behind. So it could be a scenario where Brendson Ribeiro is winning the fight, just keeping him at distance with the jab. Murzakanov can't find his angles, can't find his distance and range, and he just kind of picks him apart and beats him up, and then boom, he catches him and knocks him out. I think Ribeiro's going to look good for the first round, maybe, close to the end of the first round. But I think Murzakanov's going to be moving, finding those angles, check hooking him, stepping off on the angle, straight left, right hook, jab, moving around, straight hook, moving around, and I think he's going to just catch him stepping in with a big check hook, drop him, and finish him off. So I'm going to take Azamat Murzakanov. I think he wins. I think he finishes Brendson Ribeiro. I'm a bigger fan of Ribeiro. I'd like to see him win. I like this guy, even though he's kind of a meme in terms of how he fights. I like his jab. I like his 1-2. And he knows what he's good at, and he pretty much sticks to it. And I like fighters who know what they're good at and fight to their strengths instead of their weaknesses. But he can get into brawls and exchanges, and his defense isn't the greatest. So I kind of just see him walking into a big check hook from Murzakanov, getting dropped and getting finished. So give me Azamat Murzakanov to win, second round TKO over Brendson Ribeiro. All right, next up, we've got a fight in the UFC flyweight division between Bruno Bulldog Silva taking on Joshua the Fearless Van. Guys, listen. There's no reason Josh Van is a minus 600 favorite. And I know, don't talk about the favorites. Don't talk about the odds. Move that away from what I just said. Look at it stylistically. Josh Van gets rocked or wobbled in almost every single fight. Go back and watch his UFC career. Now, the only one who ever finished him was Charles Johnson. But I think Bruno Silva has the opportunity to be losing the entire fight and then just land a big uppercut or a knee up the middle and knock Josh Van out. I really do. The guy's got good Muay Thai. He uses his long length, good front kicks to the body, good 1-2s, solid knees. Probably his best punch is an uppercut. I would say that rear uppercut right up the middle is probably what he could catch Josh Van with. And considering the fact that when he got knocked out by Charles Johnson, he did get caught with that uppercut. It was that switch stance uppercut into the hook that hurt him and rocked him, and then he finished him off with an uppercut. And in this fight, though, who do I think is going to win? I think Josh Van wins. I think it's close for about 5 or 6 minutes, and I think Josh Van's pace, his boxing, his movement, his footwork is going to be too much for a guy like Bruno Silva, who gets pieced up when you really put that pace and pressure on him. I know he knocked out Cody Durden. I was a guy who was on that at plus 1,200 for round 2, round 3 KO. I was on that, so I get it, and I know Josh Van didn't knock out Cody Durden. I honestly believe that's the ref's fault. That fight should have been stopped. I know he was still fighting. I know he was still competing, but Josh Van was beating the ever-living shit out of Cody Durden in that fight. Multiple shot combinations, finishing, punching combinations with kicks, huge uppercuts, uppercut, hook, 1-2, jab, right hand, jab, left hook, right hand, left body shot, left hook to the head, right kick to the head, cross into the head kick, 1-2, left hook, rear head kick. I mean, the guy was really putting it on Cody Durden. The ref didn't stop it. Durden's tough. Durden's durable. Bruno Silva finished Durden. People are going to say, oh, well, Bruno Silva finished him. He has more power than Josh Van. I believe him to have more power than Josh Van, and that's why I think he is more live to KO Josh Van in this fight than most people think. People are going to say, oh, the grappling, the wrestling, the submissions. I don't think so. I don't really think that's how he wins. I think the majority of this fight plays out on the feet. The only way I see Bruno Silva shooting takedowns is if he gets pushed back, if he gets put back on the back foot, if he gets landed on with multiple shot combinations and the pressure of Van gets to him, that's going to draw those takedowns out, which is going to make it easier for Van to deny them and stuff them and use the sprawls and get right back up to the feet. Van is also a guy who will stop takedowns and get right back up. He's not going to sit on the ground and play around if he knows you have an advantage there. He's going to get back up. He's going to work his way around, and he's going to move, and he's going to get out of the way, and that's just what's going to happen. He's going to get back up to the feet. In this fight, I think Josh Van is going to put that pace, put that pressure on Bruno Silva. I think he's going to eventually just out-volume him, rip huge combinations to the body and to the head. We saw Manel Cape rip up the body of Bruno Silva. I think if anybody else in this division can do that, it is Josh Van with those brutal right hooks and left hooks to the body and the 1-2 right down the middle, and he can switch that to go directly to the body as well. I think Van's going to overwhelm him, maybe get hurt in the first round, get rocked, get stumbled, and look like Bruno Silva's going to win, but Van recovers, Van comes back, pushes him on the back foot, gets on the pace and pressure, and eventually gets an attritional finish with a TKO towards the end of the second round. So give me Josh Van to win round 2 TKO, just too much volume, too much accuracy, too much forward pressure and pace. But give me Van round 2 TKO. I think he just puts it on Bruno Silva and pieces him up, and I think he gets the job done via finish here. All right, up next, we got a battle in the welterweight division. You have a fight that's going to be a banger for as long as it lasts between the silent assassin Vicente Luque, coming off that round 1 Darce choke of Themba Gorimbo, taking on the man coming off of a decision victory over Gunnar Nelson, getting back in the win column in Kevin Trailblazer Holland. Yeah, looking at this fight, I know that a lot of people are probably going to side with Holland. They're going to sit here and say, well, he's a long guy, he's tall, he uses his length, very good jab, good 1-2s, and his boxing is probably the best ability that he has in his overall game. Okay kicks as well, kicks to the legs, kicks to the body, but he doesn't really throw kicks to finish fights. A lot of it comes from the hands. He's primarily a boxer with good defensive jiu-jitsu. To be honest, I think there is that world where he could clip a guy like Luque and knock him out. Luque's been rocked in a lot of fights. He's been dropped. He's been hurt. And I think Holland does have the length, the accuracy, and the power to potentially put it on Luque and get him out of there. So I understand in terms of the odds why he is the underdog. But from a stylistic perspective, I think if there's one guy in the UFC that you cannot trust unless it's a very specific matchup, it's Kevin Holland. I think Luque is going to win this fight. I'm actually pretty confident that Luque is going to find a way to win. Now, am I worried that he might get rocked and get knocked out? Yes. Joaquin Buckley hurt him and just, barraged him on the ground and finished him with ground and pound. The Themba Gorimbo fight was short, so we didn't get a lot of time to really look at Luque as a competitor. What did he improve on, this and that? He caught him with a left hook and grabbed that front headlock, jumped the Darce, which we've seen him do in multiple fights before, and got the finish. We've seen Kevin Holland also look at a similar scenario and similar situation, similar game plan with a guy like Michael Chiesa. Luque also doing the same thing. Both of these men have a Darce choke submission finish over Michael Chiesa. I think both of these guys have good jiu-jitsu. If anybody's going to have more success with their jiu-jitsu in this fight, though, I think it's going to be Luque. I think everybody kind of knows that at first Holland's a little bit difficult to take down, but once you take him down, if you have a good center of gravity, if you have good hips, you can control him on the floor. And I think you can also get him tired because he's going to be throwing up a lot of submissions off of his back. I see a world where Luque could submit Holland a lot easier than I see a world where Holland submits Luque. I think if Holland wins, he uses his length, uses his reach, stays on the outside, uses the jab to circle, and eventually just directs him right into that right cross, hurts Luque, and potentially gets a finish. If it goes to a decision, I don't see a world where Holland does enough damage without getting rocked and hurt himself, without getting chopped with calf kicks, without getting taken down. And I think in terms of Holland, he's a guy that you just can't trust in terms of fight IQ. He looked good against Gunnar Nelson, but he should have got that knockout at the end of the first round. I think that was kind of an adrenaline dump on the side of Holland more than it was a bad performance. But, Gunnar Nelson came back in the third round, out-wrestled him, out-grappled him, and made the fight closer than it needed to be. I just don't trust Kevin Holland in this type of matchup with a guy who can finish you on the ground, has good finishing instincts, and is good on the feet. Does he take a lot of damage? Yes. Has he been hurt a lot of times? Yes. But can he throw with more power than Kevin Holland? Yeah, I think Luque has more power. I think Luque's punches are crisper and cleaner. I just think it comes down to a game of range and distance control. Will Luque be able to get close to the inside off on those angles and chop the lead leg of Holland, start to slow him down and work his way in? Will he resort to the wrestling? Will he rock Holland and force him to shoot and then grab that Darce choke that we've seen Holland get caught in before? I think all those are areas where he could win. I think with Holland, he would have to hurt Vicente and potentially knock him out. I think that's his only way to win, but I think it's his most likely way to win. So I think this fight's a lot closer than people are giving each of these fighters credit for. But if there's a guy I'm going to trust more at this point, I'm going to trust the guy who kind of sticks to his guns in terms of the way that he approaches fighting. And that's Vicente Luque. So give me Luque. I'm going to say he wins second round Darce choke finish. I think he gets another submission. I think he rocks Holland, grabs that front headlock and jumps on the Darce and gets the submission. So I got Vicente Luque to win as the underdog. via second round Darce choke submission. I think he rocks Holland and submits him. I also think he's live to knock him out, but I would think if it's a finish, it's more likely a club and sub where he rocks him and then grabs that Darce choke. All right, next fight up is a very highly anticipated debut of one of the best bantamweights in the world, in Patchy No Love Mix, making his UFC debut against a ranked contender coming off a decision victory over Jose Aldo Jr. in the MMA Labs Mario Bautista. Guys, I love this fight. You know, I picked Mario in a lot of his UFC fights. I picked him to win against Damon Blackshear. I picked him to win against Jose Aldo. I picked him to win in another fight where he went to a decision. Let me see. I think it was... Hold on. I can't think of the guy's name off the top of my head. Ricky Simón. Yeah, I picked him to beat Ricky Simón. So I have a pretty good track record with Bautista. But looking at this fight, guys, I think Bautista is going to be the better striker than Patchy Mix. You know, Mix is a decent striker. He landed that vicious first round knee knockout right up the middle, kind of circled him off with the jab and then threw the knee right up the center. Dropped Haufion Stotts and knocked him out. You know, I think Stotts is a good competitor. I think the UFC is a different level of fighter than Patchy Mix has seen in his career. But I think Mario is the style of fight where Patchy Mix can look very good and also look very dominant at the same time. I kind of think that once Patchy Mix gets in on the hips of Bautista and takes him down, like, I know Bautista's a good grappler. I know that on the feet he's going to be the better striker. You know, he has decent get-ups. He'll look for submissions of his own. He can get his own takedowns and cage wrestle and things like that. But I think this is a levels fight to where once it does get to the ground, I don't see a world where Patchy just doesn't slice through his guard. You know, maybe it's competitive early, but eventually I think he just slides through that guard, beats him up with some ground and pound, takes his back, and submits him with a rear naked choke. That's really what I see. I think that Mario's the better striker. I think that he switches stances, cuts angles, lands better strikes, but I think the fighter who has more power on the feet is Patchy Mix, to where, you know, Mario might be out voluming him, landing stance-changing combinations, you know, chopping calf kicks, and then boom, a big shot that rocks Mario. Boom, a big shot that cuts Mario, and that allows for Patchy to get on the inside, get to the body lock, work his trips and reaps, and eventually just get to that top position and put that pressure, the world-class top pressure, slice through the guard, get to the mount, and just eventually beat him up with ground and pound and soften him up for a submission. I think Sergio Pettis beats Mario Bautista, and Patchy Mix went into that fight and took him down, you know, was in his guard for a little bit, but sliced through the guard, got on his back, put the body triangle in and submitted him, and made it look like it was nothing. You know, I like Mario. Like I said, I've been a pretty big proponent of this guy. I think he's good. I think he throws good combinations. He's got a very good and educated lead hand, those stance-changing combinations, and he fights to a good game plan. I just don't think, unless it's a 15-minute kickboxing match, I don't think Mario Bautista can hang with Patchy Mix on the ground for 15 minutes, and I don't think he's going to keep it up on the feet for 15 minutes, and I don't think he dominates him for 15 minutes if it does stay on the feet and remain a striking match. I think Patchy Mix will be competitive even on the feet, and we haven't really seen Mario. Yeah, he rocked Ricky Simón, but we've seen Simón get rocked and wobbled and hurt before. I mean, he did get knocked out by Uriah Faber back in the day, and that was a fight where everybody kind of expected Ricky Simón to win that fight. I think Mario can win if he does what I said. Leg kicks, moving in and out, changing angles on the lateral line more than the forward and backward line, switching stance going laterally, cutting him off with jabs, switch crosses, just using his volume and outstriking him, then yeah, I think he wins. But I don't think he holds him against the cage, and I think eventually Patchy lands some big shots. I think Patchy gets in on the hips, takes him down, you know, settles into his position, whether it's in side control or the scarf or reverse scarf position on the ground. I think he settles in, softens him up with some ground and pound, sinks one hook in. He's very good at kind of cutting into your thighs with his heels to be able to get that hook in. He's got a lot of dexterity when it comes to his hip and leg mobility. And I think he sneaks one of those hooks in, sneaks the other hook in, gets the body lock. I think Mario survives for a little bit, but eventually I think he sinks that choke in. And I think he submits Mario Bautista. If he doesn't tap, he's going to sleep. So give me Patchy Mix. Give me the former Bellator champion to get a win in his UFC debut via finish. I'm going Patchy Mix round 2 rear naked choke submission over Mario Bautista. I think he's going to make a statement, and I think you guys are going to be surprised at how dominant this fight looks for Patchy once he gets Bautista on the ground. So Patchy Mix round 2 rear naked choke submission. I like him a lot. I think he gets the job done, and I think he gets a finish. All right, now we're at the featured bout of the evening in the middleweight division. A fight that was originally scheduled for a fight night, now moved to a pay-per-view. You got a battle between Kelvin Gastelum and Joe Bodybags Pyfer at 185 pounds. I'm not going to break this down for too long because I already did a full breakdown on this entire fight when they were supposed to fight originally. So if you'd like to go back and listen to that, you can find those predictions on my channel as well. Listen, I think this is a Joe Pyfer fight all day. I'm going to be honest with you. Kelvin Gastelum is not in the game mentally. He's checked out. He's been checked out for a long time. And I think that's just something people need to come to the realization with. The guy doesn't have discipline. The guy will, do whatever he wants and expect to still perform at the highest level. And it's just not going to happen. And this is the first time where he's fighting a fighter besides Jared Cannonier who has real serious concussive knockout power. And not only does he have knockout power, he also has the ability to use his wrestling. We saw it against Abdulrazak Alhassan. Now, do I think Gastelum's a much higher level grappler than Abdulrazak Alhassan? Yeah, but he still gets taken down a lot. And I mean, Pyfer's teammate in Sean Brady took down Gastelum, controlled him, dominated him, and submitted him. If you really think they're not going to take that blueprint and implement it into this fight, at least in some way, shape, or form, you're out of your mind. I guarantee you Pyfer gets at least one takedown in this fight. He might only need one, and then he can beat him up on the ground and potentially set up a submission. I think on the feet, Gastelum is probably faster in terms of his output. He has a lot of power, probably the most power Pyfer has seen, aside from Abdulrazak Alhassan. But I think Pyfer's a smart guy. A lot of people give this guy shit, and, listen, you don't have to agree with everything the guy does or how the guy acts, but you got to think, the dude's pretty good. I was surprised he got beat by Jack Hermanson. Things happen. Sometimes it's just like a vet lesson, and he lost, and that is what it is. But I think he can easily beat Kelvin Gastelum. I understand why he's a big favorite. I think he beats Gastelum. I think he's got more power than Gastelum's seen on the feet. If Israel Adesanya was knocking down Kelvin Gastelum, if Robert Whittaker was rocking Kelvin Gastelum, there's no doubt in my mind that Pyfer can knock this dude out. We've seen Gastelum get hurt. We've seen him get dropped. We've seen him get rocked. And I don't think he's fought anybody besides Cannonier that has the power of a Joe Pyfer. I think he could win by KO. A lot of people are going to say, oh, well, Gastelum never been knocked out, etc., etc. I think when you want to win by knockout against Kelvin, you're playing with fire because Kelvin can easily fade back on the right hand and come through with the hook cross, or fade back and come through with a big check hook and a straight down the middle. Those things can happen, and I don't think Pyfer wants to stand and trade with a guy like Kelvin, giving him a chance to win with his footwork movement on the outside. But I think Pyfer's more in the game right now than Gastelum. I think Pyfer is more hungry than a guy like Gastelum. And yeah, he got sick the day of the fight, and shit happens. It sucks. I was on Pyfer before, and I'm on Pyfer again. How can you not be on a guy like Joe Pyfer in this fight? I mean, I get he lost to Hermanson, and that's not a good look. That's not a good look at all. But I still just don't think Gastelum's in the game mentally. I don't, and I don't think he has been for a long time. And he's live for a KO. If he outstrikes him for 15 minutes, okay. But I don't think he can stay away from the power of Pyfer if it's a full-on striking match for 15 minutes. And I think Pyfer has the ability to level change and take down Gastelum and control him until he eventually could set up a potential submission finish, just like we saw against another guy who had a lot of power and was known as a knockout artist in Abdulrazak Alhassan. So I'm going to say Pyfer resorts to his wrestling. I'm going to say he gets takedowns, controls Kelvin. Maybe gets hit once or twice, but nothing that rocks him supremely. And I think Kelvin's going to be a little bit hesitant on the feet just because of the power that Pyfer has, which is going to allow for the feints, the level change feints, and the takedowns. I think Pyfer gets those takedowns going early, and I think he submits him in round 2 with an arm triangle choke finish. I think it's almost like a copy and paste of the Abdulrazak Al Hassan fight. I think he maybe will hurt him on the feet. Would not surprise me if Pyfer put down Kelvin and knocked him out. Would not surprise me one bit, even though Kelvin hasn't been KO'd before. But I think he takes the smart approach. I think he gets those takedowns, gets on top, locks in that arm triangle, and gets the round 2 submission. So the official pick is Joe body bags Pyfer, round 2 arm triangle choke submission. Now we're at the co-main event for the Women's UFC Bantamweight Championship of the World. You have the challenger in Kayla Harrison taking on the champion who won the belt after defeating Raquel Pennington in the Venezuelan vixen Juliana Pena, a 2-time Women's UFC Bantamweight champion. Listen, guys, I mean, the easy thing to say is that Kayla Harrison's wrestling is just going to be too much. She's going to get in the face of Pena. She's going to take her down. She's going to beat her up with ground and pound and either get a TKO via ground and pound or a submission finish. I think that's the easy way to look at it, and that might very well be how she wins this fight. You know, I would not be surprised if Kayla Harrison just overpowered Juliana Pena. You know, a lot of people are going to say Pena's grappling is really underrated, and I do agree, her wrestling, her grappling, but I think it's more her will to win than any of her skills put together. She's not a great striker. She leaves herself open, but she has a good jab. I would say the best strike for Juliana Pena is her jab, and she uses it pretty well. But what she thrives in is by staying in the fight. No matter how much you beat her up, no matter how much you knock her down, no matter how much damage you cause, she stays in the fight and she continues to push forward and looks to get you out of there and break you down the stretch. I will say that if we get into the third round here, I think round 3, 4, and 5 are all Juliana Pena. I think she can push the pace. I think she can get Kayla Harrison on the back foot. I think she can start to stop the takedowns. I think she might start to get takedowns of her own if she works from the body lock. I would not recommend shooting traditional takedowns, head on the inside single, head on the outside single, because that's going to leave a girl who's, you know, an Olympic level judoka, a really strong, powerful woman, leave her the opportunity to grab your neck and get you in a guillotine. I would not be surprised if Pena shoots a bad takedown, whether it's early or it's late, gets caught in a guillotine and gets submitted by Harrison. A lot of people are going to think that submissions would more come from Pena. I think Kayla is going to win the first 2 rounds very easy. I think she's going to be able to take down Pena. She's going to be able to get on top. She's going to be able to land some ground and pound, but I think Pena will stay in it. She's going to take some damage. There's no doubt in my mind, but she will probably work her way back up to the feet. And I think the one thing about Kayla Harrison is she looks very good when she doesn't have that certain level of adversity. When you start to give these dominant athletes some type of adversity, they don't usually have fighters get up, but every time they take you down, you're getting to a hip, you're getting up on the fence, you're circling off, you're getting back to the center, and you're right back on their face, right back on the pressure. I think Pena easily wins the 4th and 5th round if we get that far. I think Harrison wins the first round 90% of the time. And realistically, man, I don't really know who I want to pick, because going in, I was like, well, Kayla Harrison, big favorite, probably takes her down, beats her up, you know, lands a lot of ground and pound, looks for a submission. But Juliana Pena has been an underdog for basically her entire career. She's always counted out. She's always pushed down. And to be honest, I don't really think Kayla Harrison is the best fighter in the world. I think she was good in PFL. I think she looked good against certain levels of competition, but she did lose to Larissa Pacheco. You know, and Pacheco was a pretty solid competitor, but then she got destroyed by Cyborg. You know, what would have happened if Kayla Harrison and Cyborg fought each other? We never got to see that. I'd like to think that Cyborg probably wins that fight if she's healthy, in shape, and ready to go. I think Cyborg would beat Juliana Pena too. So, I mean, I don't really think that means too much in terms of this fight specifically. But I think it's early rounds Kayla Harrison with forward pressure, wrestling, decent power on the feet. She's got a decent 1-2, and she does throw a lot of power in her shots. Her striking has improved. But I think if she can survive, you have to bank on Pena surviving 10 minutes. When she survives that 10, 11 minutes, that's when she's going to start to pick up the pace. That's when I think she's going to start to push Kayla Harrison back. That's when I think Harrison's going to start to give up some ground. That's when I think she's going to start kind of not surrendering. I don't think she's going to quit, but I think if anybody can make a fighter like Kayla Harrison quit, it's a fighter like Juliana Pena who's going to take the damage, going to keep coming forward and keep getting in your face. She also trains under Valley Flow. I don't know if she still is with VFS, but she was. And I mean, they just had a welterweight champion in Bilal Muhammad. So you do have to think like they know what they need to do in order to win at the highest level. I think Kayla Harrison has great coaches as well, but I just am not buying into the Kayla Harrison hype. Now, if she comes out here and smashes Pena in the first 2 rounds, will I be surprised? No, I won't. You know, I won't be surprised if she smashes her early and beats her up with ground and pound, but I just think Pena can stick in there. I think Pena can stick in there, and I think she's going to start to slow Kayla Harrison down. I think the weight cut is going to play heavy into the cardio of Kayla Harrison, and I think it was playing a factor in the fight against Ketlen Vieira, where she was kind of in a competitive fight until she got her to the ground. I feel like Juliana Pena can win this. I'm going to take the underdog. I'm going to take Pena. Is it the most popular pick? No. But I think she can survive and win later on in the fight. So I'm going to take Pena. I'm going to say and still the women's bantamweight champion, Juliana Pena. I think she wins via a 3rd round rear naked choke submission. I think it could be ground and pound, but I think she's going to start to slow her down. I think she's going to start to make her uncomfortable, and I think Kayla Harrison is going to look for the door. I know she's an Olympic level athlete. I get it. I understand. But I think adversity in MMA is different, and she's faced it before. But I think on this big stage, first championship fight, like I said, she might come out and just destroy her in the first 2 rounds. But if we get past 2 rounds, just know that Juliana Pena is going to be coming for Kayla Harrison, and I don't think she's going to be able to survive. So give me and still the UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion, Juliana Pena, to win via a 3rd round rear naked choke submission. All right, and now we are at the main event of the evening, the rematch for the UFC Bantamweight Championship of the world between the reigning, defending UFC Bantamweight Champion in Merab the Machine Dvalishvili taking on the former champion in Sugar Sean O'Malley. So with this fight, everybody's going to kind of say the same thing, that they think it's going to play out very similar to the first fight. And I tend to agree. I think when you look at that first fight, I think people expect to just see a complete domination from Merab. And to be honest, it really wasn't that. O'Malley had some good moments. He landed some good shots over the shoulder of Merab Dvalishvili, whether it was stance changing and throwing the left cross over the top or landing the overhand right. He did land over the shoulder of Merab and catch him a couple times. And then in the 5th round, he did land that stabbing front kick to the body, which hurt Merab very bad and pretty much gave Sean O'Malley that 5th round. So I would say O'Malley probably won the 5th round and the 1st round. I think Merab won 2, 3, and 4. And it was just off the pressure, the forward pressure, getting in his face. He started landing some shots up against the cage and just doing what he does, man. Getting in your face and using that unbelievably world-class cardio, pace, and pressure that really nobody can match in the UFC, let alone in his division. That cardio is his best weapon. Everybody says, what's Merab so good at? What is he so good at? He's not the best striker. He's a great wrestler, but he knows how to blend everything together, and he just doesn't get tired. This guy can push the same pace in round 1 as he does in round 5. You have to kind of suck the gas tank out of him. And I think body shots, front snap kicks for O'Malley, teep kicks to the body, knees to the body, and working up the center channel. We talked about that with some fights earlier on in the card. Feinting the rear uppercut or feinting the cross, throwing the uppercut. the left hook into the rear uppercut, the left hook into the rear knee. Strikes up the center channel are going to be his best weapons. You know, those knees, those uppercuts, feints into front kicks, feints into rear knees, feints into lead or rear uppercuts. That's what's going to be O'Malley's bread and butter. Sticking on the jab, using a ton of lateral movement. Stance changes are also going to be a big weapon, because when you have somebody who's looking to wrestle you, they usually tend to take a traditional wrestling approach, and they like to shoot off of your front leg, whether they go with a head on the outside double, whether they go ahead on the outside single, transition back to an inside single, drag the leg out, transition back to a running the pipe double, using the single leg to kind of work their way to the body lock and get takedowns that way. Merab is technically a traditional wrestler. He will shoot traditional takedowns, but he chains his takedowns together. You stuff the single, he'll go to the double. You stuff the double, he'll go to the body lock, and he'll just drag you down, and he'll make your life miserable. I tend to think that, yes, O'Malley said he's gotten off social media. He has, changed a lot of things up. He's not really thinking about him being Sugar Sean O'Malley. He's just Sean O'Malley. I kind of think we're going to get the same fight that we did the last time. Now, no two fights are the same. I think there will be a point where Merab gets hurt here. I think he'll either get hit with that pull counter right hand over the top, or he's going to get hit with a knee up the middle that I do think will rock him. But something just tells me that Merab is going to survive. I think he's going to survive. He's going to push the pace. I think he's going to push O'Malley back. I think he will start to get O'Malley tired. I think this fight is going to be close. I think if there's a finish, I think it's a submission from Merab or it's a knockout from O'Malley, which isn't rocket science. I think a lot of people would be able to figure that out. But I think this fight's going to play out very similar to the first fight. It's not going to be exactly the same. That's why I think Merab probably gets dropped at a certain point. I think O'Malley might be getting beat up on the ground, maybe gets put in a submission, but gets out of it. I think more than likely we will see the scorecards in this one, which, isn't something I'd want. I'd like to see a finish from either Merab or O'Malley. Like, if you're sitting here and you're asking me who do I want to win, I'd rather have O'Malley win. I'm not the biggest O'Malley fan. I've said it from day one. I'm not a Merab fan. I've also said that from day one. But I cannot continue to pick against this guy. Now watch, just because I pick against him here, he'll just because I pick him here, he'll freaking get knocked out by O'Malley. But the pick is going to be and still. I'm going to go with Merab. I just don't think O'Malley's going to make that many improvements. And yes, the first fight was close, but we still knew at the end of the day who won that fight. I could see O'Malley squeaking out a split decision. If it is close, the UFC wants O'Malley to win. So if it's a split decision, I guarantee you 90% of the time that split is going to go to O'Malley. But I'm not picking against Merab. I said it before I started recording this. I'm not picking against Merab. The first fight was close, but I still think Merab will get those takedowns. I still think Merab will tire out O'Malley. I think he'll start to have some success in the striking. I think he will get dropped. I think O'Malley will hurt him at a certain point. You'll think O'Malley's going to get him out of there, but Merab survives. Come back out the next round. O'Malley had the adrenaline dump. Merab still on the forward foot, still on the front foot, still on the pressure, pushing him against the cage, getting takedowns, wearing him out. And I think he wins 48-47. I think he wins a unanimous decision. Give me and still the UFC bantamweight champion of the world in Merab the Machine Dvalishvili to win 48-47 unanimous decision, 3-2. If it's a split, it probably goes to O'Malley, but I'm going to say Merab gets 3 out of the 5 rounds and wins a pretty clear-cut unanimous decision, but it'll still be a competitive fight at certain points. All right, that's going to be it for my UFC 316 Dvalishvili versus O'Malley 2 preview, predictions, and breakdown. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and smash the notification bell for all future uploads from the premier mixed martial arts and pro wrestling channel on YouTube. I'm your host, Double M, and I'm out. Enjoy the fights this weekend, guys.